It's that time of the year again! Or is it? It's the Steam Summer Sale for 2020, and man, is it disappointing. I mean, there's still good deals to be had, but tons of games aren't discounted or don't have as strong discounts as I've seen before. Maybe I've been spoiled by other sites, but Steam sales just ain't what they used to be, and no special discount promo is going to change that. Alright, so today we're going to be looking at some obscure first-person shooters. There are some games I wanted to put on this list, but for some reason, they aren't discounted very well. Now, as always, I will be recommending older games, which might not work out of the box, but I will keep that to a bare minimum, at least for games that worked on my system. If any game doesn't happen to work on your setup, I will leave a link in the description to PCGamingWiki.com. It's a really good site that has saved my ass a bunch on finding fixes for older games. So let's start it off with Singularity. $7.49, the most expensive game on this list. 75% off. That's typical, it's Activision. They don't even lower their original prices that much. I just beat this game a few weeks ago, and it was a pretty good time. Been meaning to play it through for a while now. It's one of those shooters that came out during a time where there was a new FPS every other month. Didn't help that it was published by Activision too, so a lot of people didn't care for it, thinking it was just another generic shooter. Had the color palette to match the era too, which was a lot of brown. But it's made by Raven Software, and they've made good stuff, and Singularity is a good game. Not exceptional, but it's pretty fun. Decent gunplay and enemy variety. It's got a 50s sci-fi horror B-movie vibe to it that is played entirely straight. The more notable aspects of the game being the use of the TMD, or time manipulation device. You can age enemies, throw explosive canisters at people, slow down time in certain areas. It's also got limb decapitation. While the guns are fine, the TMD is the star of the show here. I love the melee ability with it, where you can just blast people's limbs off. It's quite fun, what can I say? It's sort of a jack-of-all-trades kind of game. Campaign is short, about 5 to 6 hours. Not a lot of guns. TMD puzzle solving is very minimal. It feels like they had a lot of ideas that were never fully developed into their own thing, so that the game can be kind of unique in its own identity of, you know, having time manipulation and all this cool stuff. Maybe it's because Activision didn't want to take big risks and wanted to make something closer to Call of Duty with a sci-fi horror twist. Maybe it's also because the game spent a ton of time in development hell. Unfortunately, Raven only works on Call of Duty multiplayer now, so thanks for that, Activision. There is one problem with this game, and that's the low FOV, field of view. You can download a tool to raise it from its default, which I think is about 65, but if you start to raise it, you're gonna see stuff in your character's cone of vision that you're not supposed to see. So keep it around 70, it's not required, but if you're a stickler for not feeling like you have horse blinders on, then you might want to download that. There are several FOV tools online that you can find. Anyway, Singularity. Give it a look-see. Might be a bit expensive at $7.50, considering you can get a ton of other games at that price, but if you're starved for a decent shooter, this one might satisfy that craving. Multiplayer for this game is long gone, by the way. Buy it for the single player. Brothers in Arms, Road to Hill 30. The complete pack is $5. I have not played the last two, so I'll only be talking about the first, which is pretty cheap at $2.50. Just get the bundle, though. Road to Hill 30 is the first in a trilogy of World War II tactical shooters from Ubisoft, back when they made games with depth and strategy that were streamlined very well. Now, when it comes to shooters from Ubisoft, we just get shit, or nothing, or homogenized sequels with all kinds of open world collectathon bullshit in them, with of course the exception of Rainbow Six Siege, which is a good time. Anyway, you play as a 101st Airborne soldier, and you gotta shoot some Nazis in the face. You can command your squad and execute tactics such as suppressing fire, which is a big component of this game. You do that to execute flanking maneuvers, kind of like Army of Two without the co-op. AI is a bit weird, and sometimes it doesn't work properly. It can get a bit repetitive. The gameplay itself, the shooting isn't super great. FOV is narrow. I hear a lot of problems were fixed in the sequels, but regardless, and at that price point, especially for the whole lot, it is a game worth checking out, at the very least for the unique concept. I was having some fun with it when I was playing, and I plan on picking it up again. Now, the only thing to bear in mind is that the third game in the series is running on a different engine, and some people are having more trouble getting that game working than the other two, so that's something to bear in mind. If you don't mind waiting for another sale, the GOG version does have cloud saves, but you can just use Game Save Manager, some equivalent program, to back up your save files for the Steam version. Natural Selection 2, 80% off, $1.99 Americano. Okay, this was, and still is, a really fun shooter. The problem is finding lobbies. You can find them though. There still is a dedicated community playing this game, and it still gets major updates every now and then, including new maps. So that's something to write home about. A lot of people say this game has a high learning curve. that's not necessarily true. I mean, you will kind of suck at the game at first, but that's typical for a lot of multiplayer games, right? It's Marines versus aliens. Marines can get better guns, aliens can evolve. This is done by the RTS mechanic of the commander, which can tech up and get you new upgrades for your character. The commander position is something that actually requires skill and a working microphone, because you have this bird's eye view and you have to coordinate with your team, tell them where to go, drop supplies. It's pretty intensive. Game is all about teamwork. There are plenty of good entry-level servers. The problem is that aliens do take a bit more skill to play, and in general, Marine spots fill up extremely quickly because you're playing the Marine with guns and you can get mechs later on, so, you know, that's pretty enticing. Regardless, the shooting is fun. Munching Marines as evolved aliens is really fun. You can sneak through vents as aliens and eventually evolve into an alien the size of a massive elephant that can also cloak if the commander chooses the right path, which is hilarious. The Marines, in addition to getting jetpacks and grenade launches, can also get mechs to counter the giant alien elephants. Whole point is teamwork, as I've mentioned, so move in groups if you can, to stay alive longer, and listen to what your commander says, because he's got an overhead view. The problem is when you get a bad commander, which is terrible in both attitude or skill, or both. Now, when you've got two competent commanders on each team, that's when the game hits a 10 out of 10 for me in multiplayer gameplay. Every mechanic is utilized, and it feels genuinely amazing to charge with a group and destroy a base and deal with a counterattack at your home base at the same time. So it's base trading, and everything comes down to how skilled and coordinated both groups are. It's amazing, worth checking out, looks great despite being released a while ago. It had tons of graphical updates. Look for the rookie servers to join. They're highlighted in green and sort by player count. I've always been able to find at least one server with decent ping and a near full player count. By the way, all the extra DLC you're seeing is cosmetic, and the game is in first person, so don't worry about it. It's more of a donation to the developers to keep the game updated and the servers running. Bulletstorm, full clip edition, 90% off, $3.99. Pretty good discount. I feel like I'm going to throw up in my mouth if I have to keep praising Gearbox, though. You know, they made the Brothers in Arms series, and they were going to reboot that, but people didn't like the reboot for the direction it was going, so they just canned it, and we haven't seen anything since. So thanks, Randy. But anyway, Bulletstorm Kill with Skill was a great game, made by EA and Epic, actually. The original was taken off Steam. It had its fair share of problems, including games for Windows Live. Full Clip is a pseudo remaster. It pissed off a lot of people when it first came out. Changes to the art style and lighting, a near full price remaster, the removal of the original, and the pathetic Duke Nukem pre-order DLC, which I think costs nothing in the bundle if I'm reading it correctly, but all it is John St. John doing a voiceover for a Duke Nukem character model, and as you'd expect, none of the other characters change the dialogue based on the new dialogue you're saying. It's like some bad mod. Don't use it for your first playthrough. The core gameplay is still fun. You have this cool whip that grapples enemies towards you, and then you can pull off some fun melee moves as well, in addition to shooting, in an effort to gain as many points as possible to use to upgrade your weaponry, or just, you know, for high scores. There's also environmental damage. There are also a bunch of hidden combo skill kills, as they're called, so you'll be looking around for ways to kill your enemy creatively. The story is kind of silly at first, but then plays it more straight, which I'm not a fan of, to be honest. Voice acting is good. Dialogue is really silly. You're gonna hear all kinds of new words in this. A lot of naughty ones, too. Pick it up if you want something a bit mindless but still fun. It was a good shooter when it came out and still is. It's got online co-op as well, which might be worth looking at. Doom 64. I'm gonna make this one short because it's just Doom 64. It's cheap as dirt. $1.49. Obviously, it's been made a little less obscure since its Steam release and promotion through Doom Eternal, but this was a game thought lost to time and locked to the Nintendo 64 for the longest time. Good bit of fun. Plays different compared to the other games, the originals. It's got elements of horror, much like Doom 3. Levels are paced differently. Music isn't your typical metal. Level design is different. There are new enemy types. Gunplay is fun. There are special ports of Doom 64, but this is an official release, and it's got the features you'd expect from being on Steam, such as cloud saves. Regardless, it is very much worthy at that price point. I mean, come on, what's your excuse? It's $1.49. Do you need a whole another paragraph for me to explain why that's good value? Alright guys, that's gonna pretty much wrap it up for me. I'm sorry it's a short list. There were some games I really wanted to talk about, but they're not very cheap on Steam, or they've been removed. Games like Prey 2006 or Wolfenstein 2009, so that's a little bit frustrating. Anyway guys, Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. I'm out.